the word insecure in itself just doesn't feel sexy. It just doesn't feel like something you want to claim to the world. I feel like we even paint insecurities as such an uncurable disease when really they're just reflections of our life where we don't feel our best, but we still have opportunity to grow in. Being able to feel like I saw myself in so many of the characters on Insecure, I was like, you know what? I can stand in my truth and still be powerful. I can stand in my vulnerability and still know that I'm really that girl. What version of yourself are you willing to accept, love, and care for? Is it the version of you that's a facade? Or is it the version of you that is truly dedicated to showing up in your truth despite what others may think about it? It's EK, Erica Knox here, and welcome back to another episode of Two Things Can Be True here at Woman of Tomorrow. Today, we are diving deep into the power of strength and vulnerability, okay? Now, we know that two things can be true, and you can be both very strong, very resilient, and capable while still experiencing and expressing moments of vulnerability. It happens to the best of us, and if anything, vulnerability is not void of strength. Vulnerability is strength, and vulnerability is my superpower, so let's get into it. One quote that I really love by Brené Brown is that vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up even though you don't have control of the outcome. And immediately I think about how audacious I am by calling myself EK the Mogul. Now, the mogul is really up here in the mind, okay? I crafted that narrative about myself because I noticed that my vulnerability was my superpower and that my ideology that I knew I was going to get to where I was going and I knew I would get to my end goal despite what happens in the middle, despite what control I don't have over the outcome. And I feel like that was really boss. I feel like that was really my superpower of just owning the fact that during the process, you may not know everything. During the process, you may stumble, you may fall. But how steadfast are you on that goal and understanding that you're bound to get to it? I'm destined to be that. And so that's really where I started to wear vulnerability as my superpower because I was like, hold on. Y'all are claiming to be moguls with everything going right. I'm claiming to be a mogul when everything is going wrong. Then I'm sitting in this space of vulnerability, knowing that everything is going wrong, knowing that I have self-doubt through the roof, but still deciding to say, you know what? This is power. Where I am does not dictate where I'm going. And that to me is the power of choosing your narrative and owning that vulnerability is truly, truly, truly powerful. There is no winning and losing when you choose to be vulnerable. And I just wanted to start us off with that notion, okay? Now let's really get into it. Oftentimes, vulnerability is really painted as weakness. And growing up, especially in a Black household, every time that I cried, it was seen as weak. Sometimes I was crying through anger. Sometimes I was crying through joy. Sometimes I was crying through sadness. But it was always seen and painted as this weak thing that you shouldn't be shedding a tear. And in all reality, that vulnerability is really powerful. It's actually a symbol of strength that you have decided to allow your emotions to come through you and flow through you and flow by without judgment. It means that you're allowing space to honor your emotions and honor how you really feel. And that is difficult. So the reason why vulnerability is powerful is because it's difficult to be vulnerable sometimes. It's difficult to give yourself the space to just let loose, especially as adults growing into the best version of ourselves, and to say, you know what? I don't have control over this outcome. I don't completely understand how I'm feeling right now. I don't completely understand what's going on right now. But deciding to sit in that knowing with hope that you will soon know the outcome. You will soon know what's going to come. You will soon know what's on the other side of that vulnerability and those tears and the pain that you may be feeling. And so it's really important to open up in that way without judgment. Without judgment means giving yourself compassion, allowing your emotions and your feelings to show up as they are to your front door and you welcoming them with open arms. All emotions are not the most beautiful, fun things, but they are an indicator of who you are and how you feel. And if there's anything that you take from this, you should always welcome those feelings when they show up at your door because they're telling you something that you know to be true. Now, I want to come down the street of the strong Black women, okay? That trope, I feel like, has been such a perpetual hindrance to Black women. Oh my God. literally doesn't allow us to feel the full spectrum of emotions. Now, don't get me wrong. Two things can be true. Being a strong Black woman or a strong Black person in general is powerful. It shows your strength. It shows your resilience. But it also comes with self-sacrifice. It also comes with being immune to vulnerability. And that is honestly nothing that we deserve. No one deserves to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders without fretting and expected to do so every single day in front of an audience of people who may not even be supporting them in the way they deserve to be supported emotionally. You feel me? Like, it is something that can be so detrimental to us. So as much as it's something that we shine as a badge of honor, I am no longer subscribing to that notion that I'm going to be a strong Black woman by definition of what we know for the past 10, 15, 30 years. That's just not something I'm willing to bring into my bloodline or to the generation that's coming after me, because I want to feel the full spectrum of emotion. I made a pact with God one time that I was feeling too numb and I wasn't able to enjoy my life to its fullest because I would not allow myself to feel. Why? Similar to the quote of Brené Brown, I was afraid to not have control of the outcome. That if I felt, I could not control how I would react to something. I could not control how someone would react and perceive me as weak, and so therefore treating me as if I was weak. I knew that I couldn't control those outcomes and I wasn't in a space to welcome it. But now, as I sit here at this age in this chapter of my story, I am so willing to be vulnerable because I've learned that vulnerability and the strength that it takes to allow and honor your emotions is the most powerful thing you can do in this lifetime. And I guarantee if you are sitting at a table full of people who have accolades down the list, if that is not one of them, you can leave knowing that you've accomplished all you need on this earth by being vulnerable and daring to be audacious in that way. Before we continue this conversation, let me just say that vulnerability has too many syllables for me to say, so I'm just going to say V, okay? So when I think about V, oh my gosh, that's my homegirl. V is literally my homegirl. Like, vulnerability is one of my best friends. And when I think about best friends, I think about the fact that my vulnerability and tapping into that has allowed me to build such beautiful, authentic connections. Oh my God. I feel like the community that I attract is so much more full of depth because we're able to see each other for who we really are, and no one feels like they have to come into the room with a facade. And that's powerful. When you think about being vulnerable, it's not only just for you, it's also for the people who will feel seen as a result of you stepping into your authentic self. That is such a beautiful thing. I actively remember times when I've shied away from my light or I've shied away from having a mushy conversation, and therefore we continue to talk about favorite Black movies and what happened on the Science Channel. That's not something I'm interested in at this big age. I want to go deep. I want to talk about what happened when you were a child. I want to know your relationship with your siblings. I want to know how much you love your mother and your father, but you accept their differences. Like, I want to know that. Because as you grow older, you want authentic connections that make you feel seen, heard, and appreciated. So all the fluff goes out the window. So if you ever needed another reason to be vulnerable, think about the community that's waiting to connect with you at your most authentic form. And it makes me think about Issa Rae and how she showed the nuances of the Black women experiences from the awkward phase to all of the intricacies in that manner. And honestly, I think that's why we mess with her so much. I think that's why we loved Insecure and it was such a hit, because Insecure in itself is something no one likes to claim. I feel like we even paint insecurities as such an uncurable disease when really they're just reflections of our life where we don't feel our best, but we still have opportunity to grow in. So honestly, being able to feel like I saw myself in so many of the characters on Insecure, I was like, you know what? I can stand in my truth and still be powerful. I can stand in my vulnerability and still know that I'm really that girl. And that's what it all boils down to. What version of yourself are you willing to accept, love, and care for? Is it the version of you that's a facade? Or is it the version of you that is truly dedicated to showing up in your truth despite what others may think about it? In that same token, when you're building community, you want people to be able to show up for you in the way that you need them to show up for you. When I was battling so many seasons of depression, I didn't even know how to communicate to people that I needed their help because I was afraid to be vulnerable and to be seen as weak. Can you imagine that? I know so many of us experience not even wanting to go reach out for help because we're not willing to accept ourselves and the feelings that are coming up in the moment. And so you are literally ridding yourself of the opportunity to be loved on, to be cared for, to be supported, to be seen, because you're not willing to honor the emotions that so naturally flow to and through you. And that's just no way to live life. That's no way to be caged by your own thoughts, caged by your own emotions, and honestly caged by your own pride, because child, pride is a thing, and it will stop you from showing up as your authentic self because you think it's going to be perceived as weak. And honey, you are strong. Let's just get that together now. You are the definition of strength, not because you never failed, but because you failed several times and you've continued to get up. You are the definition of power, not because you feel powerful every day, but because despite the days that you don't feel powerful, you still show up. That's what I'm talking about. Vulnerability is that in between mushy feeling of what is going on in this world. I don't know, but I know that I got my back and I'm in it with myself through every emotion that arises, and I won't quit on her. I won't quit on this version of me because I just don't quite understand her. I won't just leave her in the dust because she's coming out with new emotions I've never seen. In the battle of depression and conquering it, which I am claiming now is no longer a part of my life, I've experienced unlocking my emotions and then experiencing severe panic attacks. Literally panic attacks that just took over my life and took over my day. But you know what I see it as now? I see it as feelings that were suppressed before, now coming to the light, and me giving them a home to live within me. That, to me, was such a groundbreaking moment when I stopped seeing myself as something that needed to be fixed, but something that just needed to be loved on and loved through every process. You're more than capable of facing yourself. This is your home. This is your body. This is your being. And the emotions that arise, they deserve a space the same way that your negative thoughts take space, the same way that your doubts take space, but also the same way that the feelings of power take space in you. All of those emotions deserve a home within you, at least to just flow through. I'm not saying let them sit there and bring you down and consume you, but they do deserve to come through and visit, and you can allow them to leave where they are. Now, I want to introduce you to a thought that you might think I'm crazy for, but I've had to tell myself this because I want to be on this journey of authenticity and vulnerability so bad. Y'all, suppression is a cop-out. Suppressing your emotions is a cop-out. Suppressing your emotions means that you don't even want to deal with it. You don't even want to face it. You are maybe in denial or choosing to not even think about the issue at hand. And so you cut off your ability to even think, engage, or embrace that negative or uncomfortable emotion. It's a cop-out. And I know so many of us do it. And so I'm not here to tell you that it's a cop-out so I can penalize you. I'm here to tell you it's a cop-out so we can create a plan to move forward, to welcome the uncomfortability, because that's all it is. It's just uncomfort. But if there's anything you've learned from any of the other episodes of us chatting and diving deeper, it's that even in uncomfortability, you can find growth and evolution on your journey. And always remember that what you resist persists. If you don't deal with it now, it's going to continue to fester, build up, and show up in other areas of your life. Now, we know, and fill in the blank, two things can be true, right? And so as much as suppression is a cop-out, the wave of vulnerability that comes, overwhelms us, takes over our lives, and literally knocks us off of our feet is very, very difficult. It is a wave sometimes of emotion that you are just not equipped or ready to handle. Sometimes you don't have the mindset or the space, and honestly, your to-do list has taken a front seat. And so as much as I can say that suppression is a cop-out, sometimes that is what we need for certain seasons of survival in order to get through. So showing up for yourself in those seasons and recognizing that sometimes the wave of vulnerability can be so much that you just have to flow with it. But if I may welcome you to a practical practice that I do in order to really practice mindfulness in those moments of vulnerability and the resistance thereafter, it's this. Take out your journal. If you don't have one, go grab you a journal. You can even grab a piece of printer paper if you need it, and write down what you are feeling in this moment. What emotions are rising to the surface as a result of that circumstance, of that person and what they said to you, of this environment? Maybe it's a revelation you've had that you've never thought of after 20, 30 years, and it's honestly new and it's overwhelming. Write all of those emotions down. Give yourself the space to honor what shows up. I'm not saying you have to accept it as truth, but you do have to acknowledge that it's shown up to you at your door for a reason. And on the other side of the wave of vulnerability is sometimes the resentment. Some of us are healing from things that we did not cause. Some of us are broken from things that we did not cause. So understandably, the resentment that we may grow towards being vulnerable and being on the journey of healing, it's valid. I don't even have anything else to say regarding that because it's just so valid. I've grown so much resentment for generational curses that have been passed down to me, but then I've also grown immense gratitude that someone, God, chose me to be the person to pioneer this healing for my bloodline, for the generations to come. I feel so honored and empowered that God chose me to face this thing. He said, when you come onto this earth, the thing that has plagued your generation, whether it's depression, addiction, or anything in between, ends with you. And with you, something new will begin. That is the power of shifting your narrative from resentment to really relishing in the fact that somebody saw you fit and capable and worthy of healing and freedom and fulfillment in a way that no one in your bloodline has ever experienced. And so if we can just take a moment to get out our feelings and get in our bag and really embrace that as truth, I feel like you'll feel empowered. And you'll also shift your narrative from really harping on the fact that, dang, I got to deal with this today. I get to deal with this? I get to handle this? I get to turn something that meant to destroy me into something that propels my destiny? Oh, please. Because sometimes I have to get in my bag. Sometimes I have to say, oh, you know what, depression? You got the right one. You know what, addiction? You got the right one. You know what, guilt, shame? Pride, ego, you got the right one. I'm ready to heal. I'm ready to face this thing because the thing that has plagued every person before me, it stops here. It ends now. Like sometimes I have to get buck. I have to get in my bag and really say, you know what? I'm the woman for the job. I'm the woman for the healing. I'm the woman for fulfillment. I'm the woman who will dare to go beyond, above and beyond to ensure that my life and my children's life and their children's lives are better than the ones that came before me. And so therefore, if I have to register for therapy and get into a community and get into an environment that allows my vulnerability and tell myself that it is okay to feel, I will do so because I'm just that invested in my journey and those who are coming after me. So I want to leave you with 2 practical techniques that I use during moments of vulnerability to really push me into a season of acceptance and growth and peace. So the first one is this. When I'm feeling vulnerable, I'll take my hand, I'll place it over my heart so I can feel my heart beating and speak to myself kindly through the process. That vulnerability may be a mistake that I've just made, and this is not the first time I've made that mistake. Or someone offending me and getting on my nerves and it's causing me to go back and feel triggered. Place your hand over your heart. Take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. And tell yourself what you need to hear in that moment. Speak kindly to yourself. Speak compassionately to yourself. And let yourself know that it is okay to feel. Whatever comes after, we'll deal with that. But for now, be present and feel. And lastly, if you don't know, I'm a journal girl, okay? I love journaling, whether it's video journaling or actually writing pen to paper. And so I love this activity, which gives me so much clarity on the journey of vulnerability. So I want you to take your pen and take your paper and write down your deepest fears and vulnerabilities. Go ahead. You might need 10 minutes. You might need 30. And sometimes you might need 5 because it's just been boiling up and you're ready to release it. Write that down on the paper. And then I want to challenge you to use your mind for good. Write down a compassionate, kind letter back to yourself that speaks directly to those imperfections, those fears, that vulnerability, those fears, and write that letter back to yourself as if you were your own best friend, showing up for her in that moment in the best way that you know how. And then I want you to store it somewhere and revisit it often because I guarantee You know what heartstrings you need to pull on in order to feel seen, loved, and appreciated. And love always starts with us, even on the journey of vulnerability. So thank you so much for tuning in, and always remember that true strength lies in your ability to be vulnerable, to honor your emotions, and to really allow yourself to show up fully. I loved this conversation with you, and I really hope that you begin to take all of this into your daily life as you give yourself more grace, you love on you, and you honor your best self. So go ahead and check out the other episodes that we've released, because we've been getting into it, and look forward to all of the episodes that we have coming up next. I can't wait to talk to you again. See you soon.